Have you ever stopped to think that maybe, just maybe, you're wasting your life? And no, I'm not talking about some dramatic exaggeration. I'm talking about that emptiness you feel even with a packed schedule. That feeling of always being busy, but never actually moving forward. The truth is harsh, but it needs to be said. A lot of people are living on autopilot, chasing external validation, piling on tasks and distractions, but without a clear purpose. And worse, thinking that's normal. But it's not. Wake up, work, pay bills, post, scroll, repeat. Is that what life has become? Stoicism throws a question in your face that no one wants to hear. Are you living or just existing? And the answer can hurt, but it's exactly that pain that wakes you up. Because when you realize time is slipping through your fingers, you start searching for something greater, and that's when everything changes. When you understand that you're where you are because of the decisions you make or the ones you avoid, the game shifts. This video is a wake-up call, not to scare you, but to shake you. Because if you keep postponing your transformation, tomorrow will be just like today, only with more regret. Now, if you're ready to flip the switch, get out of autopilot and take control of your own life, stay with me until the end. Because what you'll learn here might be exactly what you've been missing to finally take the reins of your story. So many people wake up every day to an alarm clock, rushing through life, sipping coffee in a hurry, barely questioning why they do what they do. And that's where the danger lies, when life goes into autopilot mode, without questioning, without direction. Self-awareness is the key to breaking out of this modern trance. You can't truly grow if you don't even know what you're nurturing inside yourself. Stoicism teaches you to turn your gaze inward, to find what's essential and leave the rest behind. Because if we don't decide who we want to be, the world decides for us, and it usually makes the wrong choice. Getting stuck in the chase for external validation is like chasing the wind, exhausting and pointless. Getting to know yourself isn't some mystical journey. It's a practical exercise. You know that moment at the end of the day when you pause to think about what went well, what annoyed you, what lifted your spirits. That's already self-awareness. Keeping a reflection journal might seem silly, but for many people it's where clarity begins. And when you know yourself, you understand where you want to go, and more importantly, what you need to leave behind. Personal growth begins when you stop molding yourself to meet others' expectations and start living according to your own values. Stoicism emphasizes this a lot. Living well isn't about pleasing the world. It's about living in alignment with your purpose. It's funny how we spend years trying to impress others, posting, commenting, comparing, and yet the emptiness stays. External validation is a sneaky trap. It seems sweet at first, but it becomes toxic over time. When someone breaks that cycle, they discover a kind of freedom that doesn't depend on anyone's approval. And that freedom is pure fuel for personal growth. It's not selfishness, it's wisdom. After all, as Epictetus said, it's not things that disturb us, but our view of them. But to change that view, we first need to understand who created it, ourselves. There's no point in building a life full of achievements if the foundation is rotten. And that foundation is self-awareness. People who truly grow aren't the smartest ones. They're the ones who know who they are, and where they want to go. They're focused. They know what deserves attention and what's just draining their energy. And that's when the journey starts to shift, when autopilot is turned off and control returns to your hands. But none of that matters until you understand what really matters to you. And that understanding makes room for a new kind of attention, much more powerful. Attention is like a lens. It amplifies everything it touches, and if you spend your day focused on problems, comparisons, and fake urgencies, guess what? Your life becomes a reflection of that. Stoicism teaches that what dominates your mind dominates your destiny, and when the mind is too busy with distractions, there's little space left for purpose. It's not that the world is getting harder, it's that we're getting more distracted. If you don't choose what to focus on, chaos chooses for you. Reality is built brick by what you feed with your attention. That's why developing focus is almost a superpower these days. It starts small, waking up and spending 10 minutes in silence, no phone, just observing your own thoughts. That alone is enough to take back the reins of your day. Personal growth flourishes when you learn to filter out the noise and listen to what truly matters. This applies to everything, from not letting a meaningless critique get to you to resisting the urge to reply to every single WhatsApp message. Focus requires detachment. Detachment from needing to stay updated on everything, and more importantly, detachment from the anxiety of trying to please everyone all the time. Stoicism doesn't tell you to isolate yourself. It simply says, focus on what you can control, and what you can control today is where you place your attention. A practical tip: throughout the day, ask yourself, does this bring me closer or take me further from my purpose? That one simple question can help you reorient your decisions, cut out distractions, and align your habits with your values. Because if you don't do that, the algorithm will decide for you. And the truth is, people who don't train their minds to focus become slaves to 1,000 impulses. Deep down, time isn't the issue. Presence is. Those who master their attention begin to master their lives. It's not about having more hours in the day. It's about knowing exactly where to put them. Focused people are calmer, more productive, and, most importantly, more fulfilled. They're not running in every direction. They move with purpose. And that purpose is born from inner stillness, from clarity and presence. When you learn to protect your mind, everything starts to change. And that kind of transformation has a simple but powerful secret. It starts with daily care of both your mind and your body. Self-care isn't just a hot shower or a skincare routine, though that helps too. It's mainly about caring for your mind, feeding your spirit, and cultivating habits that nourish your personal growth. Marcus Aurelius, Roman emperor and one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, wrote every day to organize his thoughts. He didn't write for anyone else to read. He wrote for himself, to avoid getting lost in the chaos of the empire and to stay focused on what truly mattered, his principles. And if even an emperor needed that, so do we. Reflective writing, done sincerely, is a powerful form of self-awareness. The mind, when left uncared for, becomes barren ground, full of weeds, automatic thoughts, and anxiety borrowed from others. A simple and effective habit is starting your day with 5 minutes of guided meditation. There are apps like Insight Timer or even YouTube, with audios focused on things like focus, gratitude, and letting go. Another transformative practice is reading books that awaken awareness. Meditations by Marcus Aurelius is a classic that fits perfectly in your coat pocket and in the mind of anyone seeking clarity, because self-care also means filtering what enters your mind. Most people want big results, but neglect the small routines that build the foundation. Self-care is knowing how to pause without guilt. It's understanding that both body and mind need breathing room to function well. And this applies whether you work in a creative field or live under high pressure. A journal, an evening walk, turning off your phone an hour before bed. All of this is real self-care. Small actions that over time build resilience. Because taking care of yourself isn't a luxury, it's the foundation for any kind of transformation. Those who cultivate the habit of self-care begin to notice something subtle. Their inner answers become clearer, decisions stop being impulsive, focus lasts longer, and that clarity creates a powerful space for something new to grow. Personal growth doesn't happen in the rush. It happens in silence, in the pause, in the gap between one distraction and another. And for that space to become fertile, consistency is key. One step per day, one practice at a time. And it's precisely at that pace that consistency starts to bear fruit. Consistency is that obvious secret everyone knows, but few apply. It's easy to get hyped on a Sunday night and promise a full personal revolution by Monday morning. What's hard is maintaining the rhythm on Tuesday, on Wednesday, and sticking to it even when no one's watching. Stoicism reminds us that there's no personal growth without commitment to the process. It's not about grand achievements. It's about small habits repeated with intention. If you want to change your life, start by choosing a habit that reflects who you want to become. And keep that habit even when it gets boring. That's where the magic happens. Most people wait for motivation to act, but the wise act to generate motivation. The difference between those who achieve and those who just dream lies in consistency, not intensity. The person who reads for 20 minutes every day grows more than the one who reads for 4 hours once a month. And the same goes for any practice. Exercise, writing, studying, finances. Want to build more focus? Create a morning ritual? Want more emotional control? Do journaling at night. All of that starts to align with your values and gradually transforms your identity. It's like sculpting a statue. One chisel strike a day. When consistency enters the picture, time becomes your ally, not your enemy. It's common to underestimate how much you can grow in 6 months of discipline and to overestimate what you can do in 1 week of excitement. The problem is that society rewards immediacy while real progress happens in silence. Stoicism is a constant reminder that living well means living in harmony with your principles every single day. Even when you don't feel like it, even when no one's clapping. True validation comes from internal alignment, not other people's likes. It's in this quiet repetition that purpose gains strength. And the clearer your intention, the easier it is to sustain the right habits. Consistency removes doubt because it proves to your mind that you are trustworthy. And when your mind trusts you, it stops sabotaging your plans. Real change doesn't come with fireworks. It comes with calm discipline. And that discipline builds a kind of strength that no one can take from you. A strength that, in fact, prepares you to face whatever adversity shows up along the way. Life doesn't send warnings. Sometimes everything feels stable, and suddenly the ground disappears. In those moments, it's not intelligence that saves you, nor money, it's resilience. And resilience is born from the habit of looking inward, from a daily commitment to self-awareness. Stoicism teaches us that adversity isn't a punishment, it's an opportunity for strengthening. Marcus Aurelius faced war, plague, betrayal, and even then he wrote with serenity about keeping the mind at peace, because he understood we don't control the events, but we can always control how we respond to them. Resilience isn't about enduring everything in silence. It's about responding with clarity, with focus, with presence. When a problem arises, the first thing to do isn't to scream or blame the world, it's to breathe. Seriously, one deep breath can shift you into a different state. Then ask yourself, what here depends on me? That simple question separates the chaos from what truly matters. Having this kind of mindset isn't natural, it's trained. It's the result of small habits built with intention. That's why personal growth doesn't just show up on good days. It shines brightest on the hard ones. A great example is when someone loses their job. They can fall into despair, or they can use that moment to rethink their purpose, realign their life, and search for something more connected to their values. The difference between a destructive reaction and a constructive response is resilience. The same goes for breakups, failed goals, collapsed plans. Resilient people aren't cold, they're conscious. They understand that every fall carries an invitation to grow. And they don't waste that invitation trying to prove anything to anyone, because external validation isn't what drives them. What drives them is purpose. Facing life with resilience is almost like wearing invisible armor. It doesn't isolate you, but it protects you. You feel the impact, but you don't break. And every challenge faced with wisdom becomes inner strength. Pain stops being just pain and turns into a lesson. Frustration becomes clarity, and instability becomes fuel for evolution. But that strength that feels almost magical, it comes from something much deeper, your own example. Because when you live like this, you naturally become a reference for those around you, even without realizing it. Some people don't even notice it, but they inspire just by the way they live. You don't need to be famous, rich, or have 1 million followers to impact other lives. Sometimes, just staying calm in a difficult moment sets an example for someone watching. When someone lives with purpose, with focus, with clarity, it shows. And that kind of presence is rare because it comes from within. Stoicism teaches exactly this. To be a light in a chaotic world doesn't require a stage. It requires balance. And that balance only comes when you build true inner stability. What's interesting is that most people want to influence others, but forget that the greatest influence is example. The way you handle criticism, how you act under pressure, how you respond to provocation, all of that speaks louder than words. Someone who cultivates self-awareness and lives with intention naturally becomes a point of reference. It's the kind of person who doesn't need to raise their voice to be heard, and this has nothing to do with perfection. It's about alignment between what you say and how you live. That's rare, and that's why it's so powerful. Being a lighthouse is also a silent choice, the choice not to be swept away by the world's chaos. It means staying grounded even when no one is watching. That takes consistent habits, detachment from the ego, and resilience in the face of judgment. But the reward is immense, because as you grow, you lift others with you. Sometimes, just seeing someone care for themselves with discipline is enough to give someone else the courage to do the same. Someone living with purpose emits a strength that doesn't need explanation. It's felt. And when that happens, the impact goes far beyond what you can imagine. But to be that lighthouse, you have to avoid a subtle trap: comparison. Because if you start measuring your light with someone else's ruler, it begins to dim. And this is exactly when the mind slips into a dangerous cycle of frustration and insecurity. Comparing yourself to others is one of the most silent forms of self-sabotage. And the worst part, it's easy to fall into, especially when we spend hours scrolling through feeds, only seeing the edited highlights of other people's lives. Stoicism teaches that everyone has their own path, their own timing, their own purpose. Measuring your worth with someone else's ruler is like trying to plant a garden in someone else's desert. It won't bloom. The focus needs to stay on your own path, on the small steps that represent real personal growth. To compare is to forget everything you've already achieved. Some people feel bad because they don't have a new car, a sculpted body, or a brilliant career by 25. But they forget that Instagram doesn't show overdue bills, existential crises, or late-night insecurity. The reality on the internet is edited, and any comparison based on that is distorted. A good antidote is to write down your own achievements, no matter how small they seem. Started meditating, took a walk, chose not to respond to that toxic comment. That's progress. And true growth is internal. Getting stuck on external validation only pulls you further away from who you really are. Self-awareness helps you spot this pattern of thinking. When you notice you're comparing yourself too much, take a pause and ask, does this comparison bring me closer to my purpose or further away from it? It sounds simple, but it's powerful. Because living in constant comparison drains your energy, steals your focus, and little by little makes you lose your sense of self. That's why Stoicism encourages full attention to what's within our control, and other people's lives definitely aren't. Every time you choose to look inward, you're choosing freedom, and that freedom creates a precious space. A space where clarity starts to bloom, where you begin to see what you need to leave behind, whether it's habits, goals, or relationships that no longer make sense. Letting go isn't about abandoning everything. It's about realizing that some things belong in the past, so something new can be born. And that applies to everything: people, plans, and old versions of yourself. Stoicism speaks often about impermanence and how attachment traps us in illusions. Sometimes a person keeps a habit just because they've always done it, even if it no longer holds meaning, or they cling to a relationship out of fear of emptiness, not real love. But personal growth requires space, and that space only appears when we have the courage to let go. Letting go of what no longer serves you is one of the purest forms of self-awareness. Because to release something, you first need to recognize that it no longer aligns with your purpose. And that takes honesty. A good exercise is to write down 3 things you're carrying that no longer make sense. It might be that addiction to social media, that soulless social obligation, or that old goal you're only holding on to prove something to someone else. Letting go is a form of internal cleansing, and those who clear space within begin to see more clearly what truly matters. The challenge lies in dealing with the discomfort that emptiness brings. Because when you let go, there's a space between releasing and receiving something new, and that gap can be uncomfortable, but it's also fertile. That space is where transformation happens. People who practice detachment don't live like emotional nomads with no roots. They live with freedom, the freedom to start over, the freedom to reinvent themselves. And that's only possible when you stop fearing change. Because deep down, fear is just attachment in disguise. Letting go is, above all, an act of trust. Trust in yourself. Trust that what's ahead will be better than what's been left behind. And that trust is what sustains the constant motion of life. Because once you realize there is no final destination, only a journey in constant evolution, you begin to see every arrival as a new starting point. Most people see success as a finish line. When I have that, then I'll be happy. But that mindset is a trap. Because when you get there, you realize the emptiness remains, unless the path was built with purpose. Stoicism reminds us that life is movement. There is no finish line, only growth. True fulfillment doesn't come from hitting goals, but from evolving while pursuing them. And that changes everything, because the focus shifts from just the outcome to the journey, and most importantly, to who you're becoming along the way. Think of a mountain climber. They train for months, climb for hours, and when they reach the top, they don't stay there forever. The view is beautiful, yes, but what transforms them is the path to get there, the discipline, the focus, the resilience. True success is that, a state of progress, not a trophy. And to sustain that state, you always need a new intention, a new direction, something that challenges your personal growth. The person who understands this stops living for empty goals and starts living for solid values. And that's what brings true fulfillment. The trap of achievement is thinking that once you arrive, you can just relax completely. Of course, you should celebrate, but you can't get complacent because the mind needs constant direction. Without new goals, it gets lost. The advice here is simple. With every goal you reach, ask yourself, does this still make sense to me? If yes, go deeper. If not, redefine. Stoicism teaches that the virtuous life is a continuous construction. There's no final diploma, and that's liberating because you don't need to race against time, you just need to walk with intention. This way of living brings more lightness because it's no longer about proving anything to anyone, but about growing, one step at a time. And each step, no matter how small, feeds your inner clarity. That clarity leads you to what truly matters, living with purpose. Living with purpose is like having an internal compass. Even when the world spins in the wrong direction, you know where you're going. Most people wake up, go to work, pay bills, but don't really know why. And that's where the emptiness begins, the kind no Friday can fix. Stoicism, since ancient times, invites us to pause and ask, what truly moves me? That question can be scary, but it also sets you free. Because when you find your answer, everything around you starts to align. Purpose transforms ordinary tasks into meaningful actions. Purpose doesn't have to mean saving the world. It can be being present with your kids, creating something useful, helping others grow, or simply living with integrity. What matters is that it makes sense to you. A great exercise is to write a single sentence that sums up the impact you want to leave on the world. Then, read that sentence every morning. It helps shape your choices, filter your actions, and keep your focus from scattering. When your decisions align with your purpose, life gains clarity, and that clarity becomes fuel for personal growth. Without purpose, the tendency is to seek distractions, buying things you don't need, chasing someone else's goals, falling into cycles of anxiety and external validation. It's a quiet loop that drains your energy. But when you live with purpose, your priorities shift. You start saying no more easily, choosing more wisely who you spend time with and where you invest your energy. Most importantly, you begin to build habits that strengthen that path. Stoicism has always taught this. Live in a way that, at the end of the day, you feel proud of your conduct, not the applause you received. A life with purpose isn't perfect, but it's lighter. And even on the hard days, you know why you're holding on, because there's meaning behind the effort. And when the reason is strong, discipline comes more naturally. But to keep that purpose alive, it's essential to remember that time. Time. It waits for no one. Time is the only resource that, once spent, never comes back. And yet, it's the one most people waste without even noticing. You wake up, grab your phone, lose 40 minutes scrolling, 20 more on WhatsApp, another hour on random videos. And just like that, half the day is gone. Stoicism treats time as sacred. Marcus Aurelius said that life is far too short to live as if we were immortal. Every poorly used minute is one step further from your purpose. Valuing time is a form of honoring your existence, and those who respect time respect themselves. A great way to reclaim your sense of value is to audit your day. For 1 week, track how you're spending your time. It might feel tedious, but it will reveal where your energy is leaking. More importantly, it will show you what needs to be cut. Distractions are silent thieves. They slip in unnoticed, and before you know it, they've stolen your attention, your focus, your productivity. Personal growth begins when you start saying no to other people's urgencies and yes to your own priorities. Time isn't just what ticks on a clock, it's what you live with intention. The key lies in protecting blocks of your day as if they were sacred appointments. Block 30 minutes for reading, 15 for meditation, an hour to plan your week. This isn't rigidity, it's emotional intelligence. You don't need to live like a monk, but you also can't act like you're immortal. Time well spent builds habits, strengthens resilience, and brings clarity about what truly matters. And in the end, that's what separates a life lived with purpose from a life run on autopilot. Valuing time also means realizing that small adjustments in your routine can lead to big transformations. But for that to truly work, you need consistency. And consistency, as you're about to see, begins in a simple way, with one habit at a time. The habits you build today are the roots of your tomorrow. The problem is, most people live on autopilot, repeating routines they never consciously chose. Stoicism offers the opposite approach, full attention to your daily actions, because those actions shape your character. A habit, no matter how small, holds tremendous power. Waking up early, drinking water first thing in the morning, writing down 3 things you're grateful for. It all seems simple, but it creates a domino effect. Small wins create consistency, and consistency is the foundation of personal growth. A lot of people wait for motivation to act, but the truth is, motivation comes after action. Want to be more focused? Start by turning off your phone notifications for 2 hours a day. Want more clarity? Build the habit of writing one paragraph each morning about how you're feeling. These are micro actions, but they reorganize your entire mental structure. The right habits create more purpose, more energy, more direction. And the most beautiful part is that over time, you start to see yourself differently. Your identity shifts. You stop being someone who's trying to change and become someone who lives differently. The secret isn't doing a lot at once. It's doing a little every day with intention. A great method is the 1% better technique. At the end of each day, ask yourself, what did I do today that brought me closer to my purpose? This helps align your choices with your values and gives you real control over your path. It's not about living a rigid routine. It's about creating a structure that holds you steady even when the world is chaotic. Stoicism calls this inner mastery. You are the architect of your own fortress, and that fortress starts to guide you to a very special place, a destination that isn't the result of chance, but of intention. A path where each step is deliberate, each decision carries weight, and every direction is chosen with clarity. Life won't take you where you want just because you want it. It will take you where you're pointed, even if it's unconscious. And if you're not choosing your direction with clarity, you're living by inertia. Stoicism is clear on this. Either you decide how you're going to live, or someone else decides for you. Every choice you make today, no matter how small, is building your tomorrow. And that's as powerful as it is scary, because it puts you in control. But it also gives you responsibility. And that's where true transformation begins. Designing your destiny isn't about crafting the perfect 10-year plan. It's about being conscious of the step you're taking right now. It's about knowing whether what you're doing in this exact moment aligns with the kind of person you want to become. If you want more freedom, more balance, more focus, you need to build that through small, intentional actions. Decide where you want to be in 6 months. Then ask yourself what needs to change today to get you there. That kind of clarity doesn't happen by accident. It comes through silence, reflection, detachment, and of course, practice. There's an exercise that can really help. Grab a sheet of paper and write out what your ideal day would look like. Detail everything, from the moment you wake up to how you feel before going to bed. Then compare it to your real day. The gap between the two is your field of action. That's where you start shaping your destiny with intention. Daily decisions are like bricks. Purpose is the cement, and consistency is the mortar that holds it all together. When you realize you have the power to decide who you want to be, everything changes. Because control stops being external and becomes yours. And when you take that control, something inside you begins to expand. The mind stops seeing mistakes as failures and starts recognizing them as stepping stones. That's when a new mindset begins to emerge, a growth mindset. The difference between those who stagnate and those who evolve lies in how each person interprets challenges. A fixed mindset sees mistakes as dead ends. A growth mindset sees them as part of the process. Stoicism teaches exactly that. We are not defined by events, but by how we choose to respond to them. Personal growth is an internal journey. It doesn't depend on applause or grand achievements. It happens when you realize that making mistakes doesn't make you less, it makes you wiser. And the sooner you embrace that, the lighter and freer your journey becomes. How many times have you thought, I'm not good at this? Now, what if you change that to, I'm not good at this yet? It seems simple, but that shift in mindset changes everything. Instead of freezing in the face of difficulty, you start looking for alternatives, practicing, asking questions, evolving. Adopting this constant learner mindset is what separates those who grow from those who self-sabotage. A growth mindset is like a new lens. It allows you to see even your stumbles as momentum, and that's essential when we talk about habits, focus, purpose, and resilience. Want a practical example? Imagine you started a new habit, daily reading, but by the third week you've lost your rhythm. The old version of you might say, I can't stick to anything for long. But with a growth mindset, you ask, what can I adjust to improve my consistency? That question changes the game. Even more, it strengthens your commitment to your path. Because failing doesn't mean starting from scratch, it means continuing with more wisdom. Stoicism calls this virtuous progress. You're not going backward, you're simply refining the way forward. And when this mindset takes root, one thing becomes increasingly clear. You need direction. And that direction comes from something that seems simple, but is absolutely fundamental: clear, realistic goals. A lot of people have big dreams, but fail because they don't know how to get there. The problem isn't ambition, it's the lack of clarity. Vague goals lead to vague results. Saying, I want to be better means nothing to your mind. But saying, I want to wake up 30 minutes earlier 3 times a week to read one chapter of a good book that has structure, direction, and purpose. Stoicism teaches us that progress happens in the tangible, not in the ideal. And when your goals are aligned with your purpose, they stop feeling like pressure and start becoming natural motivation. Another key point: realistic goals. There's no use trying to change 10 habits at once if you're still struggling to organize your basic routine. One step at a time, start with what has the most impact. If your goal is to gain more focus, begin by limiting your phone usage. If your goal is more self-awareness, commit to writing for 5 minutes each day. Small adjustments. And at the end of each week, ask yourself, am I making progress? This kind of self-reflection keeps you from falling into the trap of external validation and helps you stay committed to what truly matters. The greatest advantage of having well-defined goals is that they directly fight procrastination. When you know what to do, when, and why, taking action becomes much easier. And more than that, you feel good when you see progress. That reinforces your identity. One book read, one habit maintained, one conscious choice, all of that feeds personal growth. And as that progress becomes routine, your mind begins to rewire itself. The challenges don't disappear, but now you have the structure to face them. Clarity doesn't eliminate obstacles, it eliminates internal chaos. And it's exactly that structure that prepares you to live with more intention, more calm, and more decision-making power. But none of it matters if you don't have the courage to apply it. And now, there's only one way to find out if all of this will truly transform your life. So tell me, how much longer are you going to postpone your own transformation? How many more days will you accept living a life that doesn't feel like yours, following a routine that drains you instead of building you? The truth is, time is passing, and it's not going to wait for you to get organized or feel ready. There's only one way forward: act. Not tomorrow, not next week, today. Because everything you need to change is already inside you. It just needs to be activated, and you already know how to start. Are you going to keep chasing external validation, or finally look within and find your purpose? Are you going to stay stuck in habits that sabotage you, or start creating rituals that strengthen you? Are you going to keep complaining about the lack of time, or learn to value every minute as a precious gift? The path is right here, and it's yours. But only those who act reap. Only those who take control change their lives. The decision is yours. It always has been. And if this content stirred something in you, if it challenged you, if it woke something up inside, subscribe to the channel now. Turn on notifications, because here you'll keep receiving ideas that challenge you, that push you, that elevate your level of awareness. Real life begins when you decide to stop wasting yours.